I'm delighted to be able to join you again this year, but it's for very selfish reasons. There we go. For very selfish reasons. I very, very much need to spend some time with people who like to do stuff versus talk about stuff. Or talk about what other people should do. Or talk about what other people should make other people do. So I'm looking forward to every minute, and so far I talk about you a lot in other parts of the state for the reasons that you've heard all morning. So it's especially good to get a tune-up today. So far this morning it appears that what I'm saying is still accurate. That's always good. There's no surprise, but it's good to know. You are can-do, big thinkers, and even bigger doers. You value the relationships you have with each other, the relationship you have with nature, the relationships that you have with other partners. You're smart enough to have your meetings in a brewery and smart enough to not shy from complex issues, but to tackle them. A story that came to mind not that long ago for me, and I hadn't thought about it in a long time, was remembering when I was a little girl a conversation I had with my father. We were watching TV and watching candidates for president. I wonder why this came up recently. One of the candidates was really easy for me to understand, very clear. So I asked my dad if he was going to vote for him, and he said no. So I asked him why. And he said the guy had answers that were just too simple for the complex issues that our nation faced, and that really struck me and caused me to listen much more closely, not only what people said, but what they didn't say or didn't acknowledge. That story stuck with me all these years. When I was 9 when we had that conversation, and 10 when he passed away. And those are the memories that really stick with you. I've thought about it a lot. And I know it influenced me in how I view people and how I view the world. When folks can acknowledge complexity, the complexity that's inherent in a crowded world and the messiness of dealing with seemingly conflicting interests, and look for solutions that meet more than their own needs, I respect them. When folks hurl sound bites or epithets at others, or say that one thing, just one thing will solve all our problems if only the bleeping idiots would do that one thing, and that may be government or another stakeholder, could be anyone, I take a deep breath and try to be compassionate with them. If there's someone who should know better, I won't say what I really think, but I do take a deep breath. The language and politics of division benefit only some politicians, political consultants, and lawyers. The art of making progress is bringing humanity and honesty to the tough tasks that we're faced with in a crowded and complex world. We have a lot of tough issues in front of us. I know that you deal with them every day in trying to make decisions that your communities, your families, and your businesses depend on. And I know that the work that we do, meaning the state board, can sometimes make those decisions and those issues harder. And I want to just talk about a few of those issues in the brief time I have, in all cases, because I wish more people could bring the problem-solving skills and the attitude to them that you do, and to give you a sense of what we're trying to do and the context in which we're acting. And I really appreciate Charlie's opening to set that tone and context. The key thing I want to say about all these issues is that we will act. We need to act, even on issues that have festered or been delayed for years. But we're going to act as reasonably, thoughtfully, and moderately as we can. And to do that means that folks need to help us do that through engagement, creativity, and a recognition of the legitimate issues in front of us, whether making progress on protecting drinking water quality, fish and wildlife protection, making the water rights system work better and more transparently, or making progress on water supply reliability. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our guiding principles in the administration, and then talk a bit about where we are, a few issues, and then talk about our approach. Overall, you all have seen this. I won't go through it all. Our overarching guidance in creating our water action plan a couple of years ago, before the drought, was focusing not on today so much, but on what's coming at us with climate change. I mean, just to take one simple piece, a few degrees temperature increase, sorry, just so I can get a few degrees of temperature increase means we're going to lose our snowpack. Why is that important? Because snowpack is a third of our storage in the state of California in an average year. Again, average year is a statistical construct, but it is a third of our snowpack in an average year as it melts out during the spring and the summer and refills reservoirs and replenishes streams. If we don't dealing with water and all the myriad things we need to do to make the state more sustainable and reliable, is it 2 decades, 3 decades, or 4? The conflicts we have today are going to seem like a picnic. And so after years and years of folks talking past each other, except in the Sac Valley, I think you're right, you have all of the notable integrated thinking that has influenced a lot of us. If you add population growth to that, and you look at the fact that Australia, which had been in the same 3-year drought cycle as we've been the last 100 years or so, went into a 10 and 12-year drought cycle, it says we got to get off our butts and do something, which is partially why we went with this all of the above strategy: conservation, recycling, stormwater capture, desal in the appropriate situations, storage of all kinds, big and small, above ground and below, nothing off the table, dealing with the delta, dealing with safe drinking water for poor communities. You see the list, but figuring out how to do it in a flexible way that encourages and honors voluntary agreements, honors multiple benefit thinking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and figures out how to finance it. If we do all of these, if we get off our butts and into action with people who are doers, we really have a shot at a flourishing future for California. If we don't, and we just keep talking past each other across the decades, which does characterize much of the water world in California, then we're in a world of hurt, and we shouldn't sleep well at night. So this is our overall goal, is overcoming stasis, getting past rhetorical badminton, and getting into action, but doing that action in a thoughtful, integrated way. And I have to say that even just doing it has had a little political benefit, which is that instead of folks all arguing past each other about what the one thing is, they can see all of their interests there, they can relax a little, and we were able to get that bond on the ballot. It may not have been as big as some people would have liked, and people can argue about it, but we got it and we have a down payment on some of the resources that we're really going to need. So we're committed to action over stasis. What else did I put up here? All right, this is what keeps us up at night. Last year, worst snowpack in 500 years. That's going to be more regular. We are grateful for every snowflake we've gotten and every drop of water. Thank heavens for it, and we're hoping for as much as we can handle safely. But this is going to become more normal in the future, and so the kinds of things that you all have been working on, the kinds of things you provide inspiration for, the things we need to be rewarding and have it just contagious across the state, and some of it is. Take off. Here, just to give you the slides, we're at average in the Northern Sierra. We want to be above average, but again, I think Congressman Lamalfa was right. We need to be grateful for all of it. There you go. People like bar charts. There you go. Reservoirs still well below average. That's terrifying. Snow water content, everybody was having a big party that we were like at 104% early on. Well, as you go through the season, you got to have a lot more. We had the hottest February you can imagine. It was horrible. It was depressing. And now we're under on snowpack. So let's hope this week is good. We've done a lot in the drought. I'm not going to give a drought talk, but a lot, including delivering food and water to communities, particularly in the Tulare Basin. We are out of water and struggling. We've had, fish and wildlife rescues, and they've been struggling. People all over the place. I just wanted to mention here, many of you have been leaders in helping us navigate the water rights issues where we've done curtailments beyond where they've been done before, but we've also done temporary urgency changes to change water rights permits to allow more to be kept in storage, particularly in Shasta, to serve both people and fish later in the life cycle. Those have been extremely painful. And those of you in particular at Sac Valley have been incredible leaders in figuring out how to make the same drop of water work for salmon and work for you. And You are my heroes for doing that. Talk about you everywhere, but it's been very hard and very heartbreaking because we didn't quite make it. We lost 2 class years. You know, is there a precision science? No, but that's not good in a fish that has a 3-year life cycle, and so we need all the thinking we can going into the next year. We've done a lot to augment water. Now, water board priorities, I just put some of them up there. We have a lot on our plate, both on the water supply and the water quality side. I just want to talk about a few of them that may be of interest as I talk to David. I hate to say, I know the water fix proposal, the tunnels proposal, is probably very high up on many of your list. I can't talk about it because, as Charlie knows, when we sit in a water rights proceeding, we are water rights judges. I can't talk about it at all. Essentially, I can't even listen to you. So if someone brings it up in this meeting, I thought it wouldn't be all day. There's some meetings I just don't go to. Literally, I have to leave the room or I have to do this. So if it comes up, I'll be doing this. And so whoever's sitting next to me at the time, please tell me when that conversation is over, because it's going to be challenging. I was saying at an aqua meeting that some of you were at that water fix is going to become the new Bye Felicia, which is I'll walk into a room and someone will say water fix and I'm going to have to leave. So I have a feeling that's going to be happening. And if you don't know what Bye Felicia is, ask somebody really young and they'll tell you what it means. The water quality control plans that Charlie mentioned, this is a huge task, long overdue. They're out of date. They bring out every conflict you can imagine. There's a lot at stake. Our role, just to be clear in this, is a role I like a lot more than being an advocate or working on behalf of a particular interest. Our job at the state board is to kind of be in the middle of everyone, to maximize all beneficial users of water: agriculture, municipal, fish and wildlife, commercial fisheries, recreation, etc. Flow is a key part of this that people tend to talk about more than anything else. It's not the only part, but a key part. And your association's approach to this and your members' approach and your consultants has been extremely helpful in highlighting how there are a lot of factors at stake, not just flow. And as you know, the administration's trying to help folks talk about settlements, and I think, Richard, you may talk about that a little bit later, and we're very excited about that. Your area has served as the inspiration and the model for that. The Yuba Accords are one, but all your work between Birds and Rice, and I mean, the list goes on, and it was great to hear the list that Bryce said. In fact, when Bryce was talking, I started tearing up, just because we spend so much time in a dialogue that is that you're a jerk, no I'm not level of discourse, or mommy, Joey's bad, punish him, as opposed to people who come and say, we know this is a complex issue, here's how you can solve it. And so we are always incredibly grateful for that. Irrigated lands is going to be a big part of what we do. We've done a bit in the Central Coast. We have something up now. That is something I can talk with people about. Individually, you just have to file a report about what we talked about. I kind of hate that, but it's better than before the legislation that passed that would have said I can't talk to you. So, Richard, I want to talk to you and hear about it. We have a staff draft on an appeal of an Eastern San Joaquin order that really goes long on transparency and data sharing. Some people really hate that. It is, according to the staff, designed to help farmers work with each other to make improvements that we can take acknowledgement on so that we don't have to do harsher regulatory measures. But just know this is an issue we need to deal with in dealing with reality, because hundreds of thousands to millions of Californians don't have access to clean, safe, and affordable water, and the lion's share of them are in agricultural areas and are on domestic wells, and they just are not in communities that have the wherewithal, like our large urban communities, to treat it, blend it, etc. So we have a huge problem on 2 fronts, and until we figure out how to get them that clean, safe, and affordable water, we also need to be figuring out how to minimize the future contamination of those resources. In most cases, the problem right now is a legacy problem of 30 years of a wonderful, productive farming legacy, growing the food and fiber we all depend on. But it has had a legacy that's a challenge, and we're committed and directed to try and figure out how to minimize it. But we are very much in favor of the coalition approach. And as we go through the appeals process, we'll look forward to people helping us think it through. Whoops, wait. water rights and water management, a whole passel here. I would just say here, a big thing we've tried to go long on is information with the metering and measurement rules and information orders, because we feel we need that information to make the water rights system work better. I really appreciated what Tim said about it being foundational. Information can actually also be your friend and help you tell a story. That's been our goal, is to figure out how to make the water rights system work in this time of crisis. In Sigma, we're playing a role that's important. It's interesting because we're set up to be the 800-pound gorilla that comes in if people haven't met certain guidelines, so we're a little behind the scenes. We're actually working with communities that ask for our help because we have certain skills that can be helpful, and we've been working with DWR to do their part of the development of the regulations and technical tools, but largely what my team has been tasked with, and this is really important to me, having run a public works agency and been regulated by state and federal government and been enforced against by pinheads who had no idea what they were talking about or what context they were working in. Their directive has been to just know what's going on, so that when we get called upon to implement our tools, whether it's putting a basin or part of a basin on probation, doing pumping reporting, or ultimately maybe even doing a plan for people, we're going to show up in the right places, thoughtfully, using the lightest touch necessary to help make it successful on the ground. And when we do, all the rest of you will say, yeah, that's where they should have gone. So that's my pledge to you in terms of what our staff has been directed to do. And then in drought, of course, a whole host of things that I talked about in addition to providing more supply. We've put out more than $1 billion between our low interest loans and grant funds that we now have from Proposition 1 to Goose Recycling. I think making our large urban centers more resilient is good for them. I mean, we can't really deliver water to them in bottles and tankers like we are in communities throughout the Central Valley. But mostly, in my mind, because it helps keep the pressure off agriculture. And those of you who are in the thicket of this know that I've made it a cause to try and be out in our large urban areas defending agriculture against really dumb sound bites that make it ag versus agriculture, as if urban people buy only food that has been beamed from another planet. The water content in an urban Californian's diet far surpassed their lawn or their showers or anything else. And so I've been on something of a crusade because it coming out of my mouth has more impact. So I figure that's something that I can do. SAC temperature, huge issue. I know we'll be talking about it later. Just again, my thanks for the leadership and my pledge to you that we are working on having you in that conversation. I'm looking at Lewis because he's come and made a very good case to us. We're working on that very closely with Reclamation, and we absolutely want you in that conversation because you all, Thad, Lewis, and others have come and been creative and thoughtful, and we need you in this mix. Urban conservation, David asked me to mention it. The urban conservation regs, this is a long thing. Again, I'll be here all day, so I'm happy to talk to folks. Our thinking on that was, what if we're in the Australia-style drought? In the Australians, we can talk a lot about what they did. It's very, in Israel too, it's very encouraging. You see how far we can go in conservation, recycling, stormwater capture. It's really great to see. But you have to look at that full 10-year story, where they said they thought they were in that usual 3-year drought cycle because they had been since they started keeping records, just like we had, for about 6 years. And then it rained a bit, and they thought they'd dodged the bullet. And then they had the 3 worst years yet. And they had to spend billions of dollars all at once. Tremendous societal resources and push, a little easier for them because they're a more homogenous and smaller society, more connected really than we are, but still a tremendous effort. And they spent billions on desal facilities, most of which have never been turned on. And they've paid for them all those years. And what they said is, buy yourself some time. You'll need facilities over the long run, but buy yourself some time, particularly since over half of our water in urban areas goes to outdoor ornamental landscaping. So we thought, as an administration, better to ring the bell early as we headed into our 4th year of drought and say, let's save that water that you're dumping on your lawns that they don't really need to make them look like they're in Scotland rather than in a Mediterranean climate. And let's figure out how to save some water in case we're in a long one. So that's what we did there. We adjusted a bit and extended in February, but we're definitely going to be revisiting it at the end of April when we know what we're looking at. And we've invited people to give us better ways to do it because it's a bit of a crude implement. So that's a taste. And I hope I picked right on the issues. But let me close by saying a few things about this work and why your example is so important to us. There is a huge challenge in finding the constructive path through a thicket of conflict. It's hard, and it's sometimes lonely. And I just have to say again, we love people who help us find better ways to meet the objective, whether it's finding a better balance in a water quality control plan, figuring out how to improve conditions for disadvantaged communities, or even implement the water rights system with all its potential harshness. You all provide us with strong advocacy for your positions, but you also come with an ability to put yourselves in our shoes. You're forceful and make good arguments, but you respect the legitimate interests of others. That is all too uncommon. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Not only is it helpful, it makes us want to help you even more. Getting information, as I said before, having fact-based versus rhetorically based discussions is incredibly important. It's all too rare. I was at a meeting of chief technology officers on Monday from across the country. I mean, it was a room full of guys in really expensive, tailored, dark suits, white shirts, and red ties. And they just had their hair cut, apparently. It was really an interesting audience. And one of them came out and he was talking about big data and information tools. You know, we were talking about sensors, bioremediation, the cutting edge of technology in the water field. And he got up there and he said, here's what it all boils down to. You just can't make chicken salad out of chicken poop. And I was stunned at that coming out of his mouth. He didn't actually say it that way, but I thought I should say it that way. Frankly, the way we look at it is that we have enough tough challenges and enough to argue about when we actually have the facts, and that's a better foundation to have those arguments. Otherwise, all we're left with is that Monty Python or Emily Latella routine with the is so is not level of discourse, which isn't up to the task. And here again, you lead. I thought I needed to go to look at Abraham Lincoln. I found him at some point when I was trying to find a quote about how important giving facts and transparency to the people are, because many people don't trust the people. And I said, I'm a firm believer in the people. If given the truth, they can be depended upon to meet any national crisis. The great point is to bring them the real facts and beer. I had to bring that here. Again, another reason to be here. But I didn't, there's that, beer is proof that God loves us quote from Benjamin Franklin. And I thought, I didn't really realize beer was that much of an important part of the thinking of our nation, although I don't know why I should be surprised. So one late night, I Googled John F. Kennedy and beer, Robert F. Kennedy and beer, Ronald Reagan and beer, and Martin Luther King and beer. And I got nothing. But what I got was from Martin Luther. And when I stop, it's a period. Whoever drinks beer, he is quick to sleep long. Does not sin. Whoever does not sin enters heaven. Thus, let us drink beer. I don't know if it's true, but really pretty incredible. So let me just speed through a few things to make my point. This is reality we have to deal with. Is it in 1 decade, 2 decades, or 3? I don't know. We don't know. But we've got to count on it happening more often, which is why we need more storage of all kinds. We are not going to conserve and recycle ourselves to a resilient California. We're also not going to just store and convey our way. We've got to do it all. Hence the all of the above approach, nothing off the table, no sacred cows. We already heard about the sea level's going to rise. Maybe it's not linear into the delta, but that can't be good considering how hard it is to maintain salinity now. It matters to a lot of our state. That's where we have contaminated water that people are potentially relying on. You're in a big city, you can afford to treat it or blend it. You're in a small rural community, you're out of luck. And we made a lot of great strides since the governor and the legislature moved the drinking water program to the state board about 1.5 years ago. We've gotten some tools, but we're going to need more. to deal with it. In 2016, this should not be happening in the state of California. Fish are in trouble. You guys know it, and you guys are a bright spot in an otherwise bleak world. Our population's going to rise. We're not going to eat our young. It's going to happen, and we want the economic and social growth it will bring. And we're one of only 5 Mediterranean climates in the world that can grow the level of healthy fruits and vegetables and other foods that we can. This is a precious resource that all Californians need to understand. This is not just who can pay more for water. This is about valuing agriculture. This is going to become a huge issue for the nation and the world, and we are sitting pretty if we take care of it. Point I try to get people to realize. And the beauty is we can do something about it, whether it's integrated water management or the kinds of things you do or the kinds of things that a lot of cities are doing on speed in Southern California. And we are doing a lot about it. Myriad acts. I talk about the stuff that you all have done over the years. There are individual farmers and communities that have run pipes to connect to the communities that are in trouble. The legislature has done more in the last few years than they have in the last few decades, and this is just a sampling, which is fantastic. Usually the legislature is kind of a battleground between the is-so, is-not combatants, and that hasn't been the case, which is fantastic. And then we have local leaders like you in a variety of places. You just happen to have more of them in more places in a way that is hopefully contagious. So what do we do? How do we approach it? It's a lot about attitude. We need to value the whole suite of things that people need. Agriculture for food and fiber, healthy rivers and ecosystems, vibrant urban centers and healthy smaller towns, clean drinking water. These should not be pitted against each other, which is easy emotionally and rhetorically to do and does no one a service. People, Californians, they need them all. So our focus has to be on how to value them all and do the hard and complex work it takes to get us into the 21st century. To do it requires our technical, our scientific, our legal, our regulatory, skill-based skills, but it really requires most of all our human skills. And above all, and all of the above, attitude and an ability to bring respect for all to the work. We need to keep our eyes on those decades ahead rather than the decades behind us, though we need to respect what came before. We need to be in action rather than stuck arguing. We need to recognize complexity, deal with facts rather than fancy, and try to make progress with anyone who will join. You know, as I said, when Bryce was talking about your efforts this morning, I got all teary over there. I think you have no idea how important you are to all of us, to me personally, and just how powerful you are as a result of your sophisticated, humane, and intelligent actions and advocacy. So with that, thank you from the bottom of my heart for today. It's going to be, has been, and will be therapeutic compared to the way I spend most of my days, and I just bless you for all that you do and all you'll do in the months and years ahead to help us through the challenges that lie before us. Thank you so much, and thank you, Chuck.